Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. In the quiet morning, a soft machine noise broke the calm. The sound got louder, mixing with the news playing in the background. The coffee machine made a hissing sound. Derek, still tired, walked slowly across the tiled floor. He wore old gray sweatpants and a faded college shirt. As he got closer, he saw someone behind the counter. She wore a lavender silk robe and moved smoothly between the appliances. She poured bright pink liquid into 2 glasses. Derek took the smoothie without thinking. He kept looking at his phone. The taste was the same as always: sweet strawberries, smooth banana, strong protein powder, and a flavor he could never name. This was their daily routine. Every morning, they did the same things: wake up, have a smoothie, shower, then start work. Day after day, week after week. Derek drank half the smoothie in one long sip and put the glass on the counter. Running late again. He grabbed his keys from the ceramic bowl near the door. Client meeting at 9. Don't forget your smoothie! A hand pressed the glass back into his palm. You need your nutrients. Derek finished it quickly, barely tasting the familiar blend. The front door clicked shut behind him, leaving only the faint echo of heels on hardwood. 3 months passed in much the same way. The smoothies appeared every morning without fail, pink and frothy in their tall glasses. Derek noticed his dress shirts fitting differently around the chest, attributing it to the gym routine he'd abandoned weeks ago. His razor collected dust in the medicine cabinet. His facial hair had become so sparse that shaving seemed pointless. "You're glowing," commented his coworker one afternoon, peering over the cubicle wall. "New skincare routine?" Derek touched his cheek, feeling the unusual softness. Must be all those vitamins in my morning smoothie. His pants required a belt now, cinched tight around his narrowing waist. The scale in the bathroom showed the same weight, but the distribution had shifted. Derek stood before the mirror one evening, noting how his hips seemed to flare outward, how his chest appeared to push against his t-shirt in ways that made no sense. "Honey, have you seen my—" The voice trailed off from the doorway. Derek turned, catching sight of an expression he couldn't quite read. Satisfaction? Anticipation? It vanished too quickly to tell. "Your what?" "Never mind. Found it." The door closed with a soft click. Another month brought more changes. Derek's auburn hair, which he'd always kept short and neat, now brushed his shoulders. He'd meant to get it cut weeks ago, but somehow never found the time. His hands looked different too, more delicate, with longer fingers that seemed to taper elegantly. The morning routine continued unchanged. Pink smoothie, quick shower, rush to work. Derek had taken to wearing looser shirts, buying them a size up to accommodate the persistent swelling in his chest. He told himself he'd see a doctor soon, maybe get some blood work done. Tomorrow, always tomorrow. "You should wear your hair up," suggested the woman one morning, fingers playing with Derek's auburn strands. "It would look pretty in a ponytail." Derek pulled away. "I'm getting it cut this weekend." "Such a shame. It's beautiful." That night, Derek stood naked before the full-length mirror in the bedroom, really looking at himself for the first time in months. The changes were undeniable now. His chest had developed into small but distinct mounds. His hips curved outward dramatically, giving him an hourglass silhouette. Even his face looked different. Softer features, fuller lips, higher cheekbones. The bottom drawer of the dresser was slightly open. Derek had never noticed it before, always using only the top 3 drawers for his clothes. Curiosity made him pull it fully open. Bottles. Dozens of small amber bottles with prescription labels, all bearing the same name: estradiol, spironolactone, progesterone. The dates went back 6 months. Derek's hands shook as he picked up one bottle, reading the label carefully. Hormone replacement therapy. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The smoothies, the changes, the satisfied looks. "I was wondering when you'd find those." Derek spun around, still clutching the bottle. The woman stood in the doorway, wearing her lavender robe, no trace of guilt on her face. "You've been drugging me." The words came out as a whisper. "Helping you." She stepped into the room, movements casual and unhurried. You're beautiful now. Look at yourself. This is insane. You can't just... Derek's voice cracked, higher than he remembered. Why would you do this? Because I wanted a girlfriend. The admission came easily, as if discussing the weather. And you make such a pretty one. Derek's legs gave out. He sank onto the edge of the bed, still gripping the hormone bottle. The room spun as months of small oddities suddenly made sense. The doctor's appointments that got mysteriously canceled. The way his razors kept disappearing. The constant push to grow his hair longer. You're sick. Derek looked up, anger finally breaking through the shock. This is assault. It's illegal. I could have you arrested. Could you? She sat beside him on the bed, close enough that Derek could smell her perfume. Who would believe you? Besides, look at yourself. Really look. You're happier now, aren't you? More comfortable in your skin? Derek wanted to deny it, but something held him back. The truth was more complicated than simple violation. Over the past months, despite not understanding the changes, he'd felt lighter somehow. The constant tension he'd carried for years had melted away. Looking in the mirror had become less of a chore and more of a curiosity. That doesn't make it right. His protest sounded weak even to his own ears. Maybe not. She reached out, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind Derek's ear. But right and wrong get fuzzy when happiness is involved. You could stop taking them now. Some changes might reverse. Your voice would drop again. The breast tissue might reduce slightly. But do you want that? Derek stood abruptly, needing distance. He paced to the window, still naked, no longer caring about modesty. The streetlights outside cast orange shadows across his transformed body. In the window's reflection, he saw someone he didn't recognize, someone softer, more graceful, undeniably feminine. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. She rose from the bed, moving toward the door. I'll be downstairs. Alone, Derek returned to the mirror. His hands explored the new curves, the soft skin, the subtle changes in muscle distribution. His chest was sensitive in ways it had never been before. His hips swayed naturally when he walked, a feminine gait he'd developed without noticing. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface. What had been done to him was unforgivable, a violation of the deepest kind. But underneath the anger lay something else, a strange sense of recognition, as if meeting himself for the first time. Derek opened the closet, pushing aside his section to reveal the other side. Dresses hung in neat rows, organized by color. He'd always assumed they belonged to her, but now, looking at the sizes, he wasn't so sure. His fingers trailed across the fabrics: silk, cotton, chiffon. A pink sundress caught his eye, simple and elegant, with thin straps. Before he could second-guess himself, Derek pulled it from the hanger. The fabric whispered against his skin as he stepped into it, the hem falling just above his knees. The fit was perfect, as if tailored specifically for his new body. In the mirror, the reflection showed a woman with shoulder-length auburn hair wearing a pink sundress that complemented her pale skin. Milani. The name came unbidden to his lips. It felt right in a way Derek never had. Footsteps on the stairs made Milani turn. She, and yes, it was she now that felt certain, smoothed down the dress with nervous hands. I knew that would look perfect on you. The woman appeared in the doorway, a soft smile playing on her lips. Milani, it's beautiful. You bought these for me. It wasn't a question. I bought them for who you were becoming. She entered the room slowly, as if approaching a wild animal. I know what I did was wrong. I know you should hate me. But I also know that you've been happier these past months than in all the years before. Milani wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. The truth sat heavy between them. Despite the violation, despite the betrayal, she had been happier. The constant discomfort that had plagued her for years, always attributed to work stress or relationship issues, had faded with each passing week. This doesn't make it okay. Milani's voice was quiet but firm. No, it doesn't. The woman sat on the bed again, hands folded in her lap. I'm sorry for taking the choice away from you. That was wrong. But are you sorry for where it led? Milani turned back to the mirror, studying her reflection. The pink sundress moved naturally with her body, as if she'd been wearing such clothes her whole life. Her auburn hair framed her face in soft waves. The woman in the mirror looked content in a way Derek never had. I should call the police. You should. No argument, no pleading, just simple acceptance. But I won't. Why? Milani moved to the dresser, picking up one of the hormone bottles. The label bore Derek's name, but that person felt like a stranger now, a character from someone else's story. Because she's right. Milani unscrewed the cap, shaking out a small blue pill. I am happier, God help me, but I am. The pill was bitter on her tongue, but Milani swallowed it dry, this time by choice. This time with full knowledge of what it meant. What happens now? The woman's voice held a note of uncertainty. Now? Milani turned from the mirror, shoulders squared despite the delicate sundress. Now we have a conversation about consent, boundaries, and trust, and then... She paused, considering. Then we see where this goes? I have more clothes for you. Shoes, too. Size 8, right? How long have you been planning this? Since the day I realized I was falling in love with someone I wished was a woman. The honesty was brutal in its simplicity. I know that's selfish. I know it's wrong. But love makes us do terrible things sometimes. Milani found herself moving closer, drawn by a mixture of anger and understanding. The betrayal still burned, might always burn, but beneath it lay something more complex. How many nights had she lain awake, feeling wrong in her own skin, without understanding why? How many times had she avoided mirrors, uncomfortable with the masculine reflection staring back? You had no right. The words came out softer than intended. No, I didn't. Tears gathered in the woman's eyes. But I watched you suffer every day, saw how you flinched at your own reflection, how you seemed trapped in a body that didn't fit. I told myself I was helping. By drugging me? By giving you what you were too afraid to want. The accusation hit closer to home than Milani cared to admit. She moved to the closet again, running her hands along the hanging dresses. Each one was exactly her style, or what her style would have been, given the chance to develop it. Show me the shoes. The woman rose quickly, moving to the closet's built-in shelving. Boxes lined the lower shelves, each bearing a small label. She pulled out a white box, setting it on the bed. I thought these would go with the sundress. Inside lay a pair of white leather sandals with delicate straps. Milani sat on the bed, sliding her feet into them. Perfect fit, just as expected. Standing, she found they added 2 inches to her height, while somehow making her feel more grounded. There's more. The woman gestured to the dresser. Underwear, jewelry, makeup, everything you might need. Everything you decided I'd need. The correction was important. Yes. Milani walked to the window again, this time catching her full reflection in the darkened glass. Pink sundress, white sandals, auburn hair catching the light. She looked like any other woman heading out for a casual lunch date. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it brought an unexpected sense of peace. I want to see everything. For the next hour, the woman laid out the full extent of her preparations. Drawers full of carefully selected lingerie in soft pastels and blacks. A jewelry box containing delicate necklaces, earrings for ears not yet pierced, bracelets sized for Milani's slender wrists. Makeup organized by type and color, though Milani's skin had cleared so much that foundation seemed unnecessary. You really thought of everything. Milani held up a bra, noting how it matched the panties she'd already discovered in another drawer. I wanted you to have options, to find your own style, within the framework you created. Yes. No denial, no excuse, just acknowledgement. Milani set down the bra, turning to face the woman fully. What you did was a violation. You understand that, right? You took away my agency, my choice, my ability to discover this on my own terms. I know. But you'd do it again. A pause. Probably. Does that make me a monster? It makes you human. Milani surprised herself with the answer. Selfish and controlling and human. What are you going to do? Milani considered the question carefully. The smart thing would be to leave, to check into a hotel and contact a lawyer. The safe thing would be to stop the hormones immediately and try to reverse what changes she could. The angry thing would be to burn every dress in the closet and never look back. Instead, she found herself sitting at the vanity, studying her reflection in the well-lit mirror. Her fingers traced the outline of her face, noting the subtle feminization of her features. "Teach me about makeup." "Really?" Hope crept into the woman's voice. "If I'm going to do this, and I haven't decided if I am, I need to know how." Milani picked up a tube of lipstick, examining the color. "Start with the basics." For the next 2 hours, they sat together at the vanity. The woman's hands were gentle as she showed Milani how to apply foundation, though her skin needed little coverage. Eye makeup came next, subtle browns and golds that made her eyes appear larger. Mascara darkened her lashes, which had grown surprisingly long. The lipstick was last, a soft pink that complemented the sundress. "You're a natural." The woman stepped back, admiring her work. "I've had a good teacher." Milani turned her head, examining her profile. The makeup enhanced rather than masked, bringing out features that had been hiding beneath the surface. "There's something else." The woman disappeared into the bathroom, returning with a small velvet box. "I bought these months ago. I wasn't sure if—" She trailed off, opening the box. Inside lay a pair of small gold hoops, delicate and simple. "My ears aren't pierced." "I know. We could go tomorrow if you want. There's a place downtown that does it properly." Milani took the box, holding the earrings up to the light. Such a small thing, but it felt monumental. Pierced ears were a commitment, a visible sign of the path she was considering. "Maybe." She set the box on the vanity. "I need more time." "Of course." They moved downstairs, Milani still wearing the pink sundress and white sandals. Walking in the low heels required concentration, but her body seemed to adapt quickly, finding a natural rhythm. In the kitchen, she noticed the blender still on the counter, remnants of the morning smoothie coating the sides. "No more secrets." Milani's tone brooked no argument. "If I decide to continue the hormones, I do it with full knowledge and consent. No hiding pills in food, no manipulation, no deciding what's best for me without my input." "Agreed. And we see a therapist? Both of us. Separately and together." "That's fair." Milani opened the refrigerator, finding it stocked with her usual preferences plus new additions. Soy milk, fresh fruits, vegetables she'd never bothered buying before. Even her diet had been subtly modified over the months. "How long were you planning before you started?" 6 months, maybe more." The woman leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "I researched everything. Hormone dosages, potential side effects, timeline of changes. I wanted to make sure it was safe." "Safe?" Milani laughed, the sound bitter. "You were drugging me without consent, but at least it was safe. I know how it sounds." "Do you?" Milani closed the refrigerator harder than necessary. "Do you really understand what you've done? You've changed my body, possibly permanently. You've altered my brain chemistry. You've made decisions about my life that weren't yours to make." "You're right." The woman's voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I loved you so much, and I could see how unhappy you were, and I wanted to fix it. I wasn't yours to fix." The words hung between them, sharp and true. Milani gripped the counter, knuckles white beneath her softer skin. The anger was important, necessary even. It grounded her in the reality of what had happened, preventing her from getting lost in the unexpected euphoria of her transformation. "No, you weren't." The woman slumped onto a kitchen stool. "I've been selfish, controlling. I violated your trust in the worst possible way." "Yes, you did." "So why are you still here?" Milani released the counter, smoothing down her sundress with hands that shook slightly. The question cut to the heart of her confusion. Why was she still here? Why hadn't she stormed out, called the police, done any of the things a reasonable person would do? Because despite everything, you were right about one thing. The admission cost her, but honesty seemed important now. "I am happier. For the first time in my adult life, I look in the mirror and see someone familiar. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it complicates my response to it." "What do you mean?" Milani moved to the kitchen table, sitting carefully in the unfamiliar dress. I mean that I've spent 32 years feeling like I was wearing a costume. Every morning, I'd put on my masculine clothes and masculine attitude and pretend it fit. I never had the words for it, never understood why everything felt slightly off. And now? Now I'm wearing a pink sundress and makeup, and it feels more natural than any suit ever did. Milani touched her face, feeling the smooth skin. You forced this on me, but somehow you forced me into authenticity. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it complicated. They sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the kitchen windows. Milani watched the light play across her hands, noting how different they looked with shaped nails and smooth skin. I need space to think. She stood, wobbling slightly in the sandals before finding her balance. I'm going to stay in the guest room for a while. Of course, do you need anything? Clothes? Toiletries? I'll manage. Milani paused at the kitchen doorway. The hormones. How long before the changes become permanent? Some already are. Your breast development, the fat redistribution, those would require surgery to fully reverse. Your voice should stay in its current range. Body hair might partially return if you stop, but probably not to previous levels. So I'm already past the point of no return. In some ways, yes. Milani nodded slowly. Good to know. The guest room was as thoughtfully prepared as everything else. The closet held more clothes in her size, the dresser contained appropriate undergarments, and the bathroom was stocked with feminine products. Even here, in what should have been neutral space, evidence of planning surrounded her. Milani sat on the bed, still wearing the pink sundress. Her reflection in the mirror across from the bed showed a woman deep in thought, auburn hair falling across her shoulders. She looked tired, but somehow more alive than Derek ever had. The name issue would need addressing. Derek felt like a stranger now, a role she'd played for 3 decades without realizing it was a performance. Milani fit better, though choosing it in a moment of crisis made her question its permanence. Still, for now, it would do. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. I brought you some things. The woman's voice was muffled through the door. Come in. She entered carrying a small overnight bag. Pajamas, some comfortable clothes for tomorrow, your pills if you decide to take them. She set the bag on the dresser. I also brought this. She held out a leather journal, unmarked and new. What's this for? I thought you might want to write down your thoughts. Process everything. It helped me when I was figuring out my sexuality. Milani accepted the journal, running her fingers over the smooth cover. When did you know you preferred women? College. Maybe earlier, but college was when I admitted it to myself. The woman sat on the edge of the bed, maintaining careful distance. It wasn't easy. I dated men for years, trying to make it work, including me. No. The response was immediate. With you, it was different. I fell in love with your soul first, your kindness, your humor, the way you listened when I talked. But I couldn't ignore that physically. I wasn't attracted to you as a man. So you decided to change me. I decided to help you become who you always were inside. The woman sighed. I know that sounds like justification. Maybe it is. But I saw signs, Milani. The way you'd linger in the women's clothing section when we shopped. How you'd absently play with your hair when it got longer. The peace on your face when you slept, compared to the tension you carried while awake. You were watching me that closely? I watch everyone I love that closely. Milani opened the journal, finding a pen tucked into the binding. The first page stared back at her, blank and full of possibility. Where would she even begin? How could she capture the swirl of emotions, betrayal, anger, relief, joy, fear, that competed for attention? I'll leave you alone. The woman stood, moving toward the door. Wait. Milani looked up from the journal. One more question. If I had found out sooner, what would you have done? I don't know. Denied it, probably. I had explanations ready, vitamin supplements, protein powder, anything to deflect suspicion. And if I'd wanted to stop? A long pause. I would have tried to convince you otherwise, shown you how much happier you'd been, pointed out the positive changes. And if that didn't work? Then I would have grieved for both of us, for the person you could have become and the relationship we would have lost. The honesty was brutal but necessary. Milani appreciated it more than pretty lies or elaborate justifications. At least now she knew where they stood. "Thank you for not lying." The woman nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. Alone again, Milani opened the overnight bag. The pajamas were silk, pale blue with delicate piping. She changed out of the sundress carefully, hanging it in the closet among the other clothes that had been prepared for her. The silk felt cool against her skin, another new sensation in a day full of them. At the bottom of the bag, wrapped in tissue paper, lay the hormone bottles. A note was attached. "Your choice now, always your choice." Milani set the bottles on the nightstand, staring at them as if they might provide answers. 3 small containers that had reshaped her body and possibly her future. She could stop now, deal with whatever reversal was possible, try to reclaim her old life. Or she could continue, moving forward into an uncertain but oddly appealing future. The journal lay open beside her. Finally, she picked up the pen and began to write. "Today I discovered I've been living as someone else's experiment. I should be furious. I am furious. But I'm also grateful, and that terrifies me more than anything." The words flowed, filling page after page. She wrote about the physical changes, the emotional upheaval, the strange sense of coming home to herself. She wrote about Derek as if describing a distant relative, someone she'd known once but lost touch with over the years. She wrote about Milani as a possibility, a potential future that felt more real with each passing hour. When exhaustion finally overtook her, the journal was half full and her hand cramped from writing. The hormone bottles remained untouched on the nightstand, a decision deferred until morning. Milani turned off the light and lay in the unfamiliar bed, silk pajamas sliding against sheets. In the darkness, she could almost pretend the last few hours hadn't happened. But her body told a different story. The weight on her chest, the curve of her hips, the absence of familiar angles and planes. Sleep came slowly, bringing dreams of pink sundresses and white sandals, of mirrors that showed truth instead of costume, of choices made and unmade and made again. Morning arrived with sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. Milani woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was. The silk pajamas brought memory crashing back, the discovery, the confrontation, the impossible decision that waited on the nightstand. She sat up, auburn hair tangled from sleep. The mirror on the dresser showed a woman with smudged makeup and tired eyes. Yesterday's careful application had survived the night poorly, leaving her looking somewhere between polished and disheveled. A knock at the door interrupted her assessment. "I made breakfast." The voice was tentative. "If you're hungry." Milani's stomach responded before her mind could object. She hadn't eaten since yesterday's lunch, too caught up in revelation to think about food. "Give me a few minutes." "Of course." In the bathroom, Milani washed her face, watching the makeup swirl down the drain. Her bare face in the mirror looked softer than she remembered, features arranged in patterns that finally made sense. She brushed her teeth, finger-combed her hair into some semblance of order, and returned to the bedroom. The overnight bag yielded a simple outfit, jeans that hugged her new curves and a burgundy sweater that draped elegantly. The clothes fit perfectly, of course. Everything in this new life had been tailored to specifications she hadn't known were being taken. The hormone bottles still waited on the nightstand. Milani picked up one, reading the label again. Such small things to cause such massive change. She opened the bottle, shaking a single pill into her palm. Blue and innocuous, it represented a choice that wasn't really a choice anymore. Too much had changed to go back now. She swallowed the pill dry, then the others, according to the prescribed schedule. If she was going to do this, she'd do it properly. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled of coffee and eggs. The woman stood at the stove, wearing jeans and a green flannel shirt. She looked tired, as if sleep had been elusive for her as well. "I made your favorite." She gestured to a plate on the table. Scrambled eggs with cheese, wheat toast, orange juice. "No smoothie?" The question came out more sarcastic than intended. "No smoothie, not unless you make it yourself." Milani sat at the table, suddenly ravenous. The food tasted normal, no hidden additives or secret ingredients. Just eggs and cheese and bread, simple and satisfying. I took the pills. The woman's hand stilled on her coffee mug. Oh? Don't read too much into it. I'm not forgiving you. I'm just accepting the reality that stopping now would be pointless. That's fair. They ate in relative silence, the only sounds the clink of silverware and distant traffic. Milani found herself hyper-aware of small changes, how she held her fork, the way she dabbed at her mouth with a napkin, gestures that had shifted toward feminine without conscious thought. I want to see a doctor. She set down her fork. A real one. Get blood work done. Make sure the dosages are appropriate. I have a referral. Dr. Martinez specializes in hormone therapy. She's very good. Of course you do. Milani pushed eggs around her plate. Is there anything you haven't planned for? Your anger. I didn't plan for how much it would hurt to see you look at me like I'm a monster. You're not a monster. The admission surprised them both. You're just someone who loved selfishly. There's a difference. Is there? Milani considered the question. Monsters acted without conscience, without care for consequences. The woman across from her had acted with too much care, planning every detail, considering every outcome except the one where her betrayal was discovered. Yes, monsters don't make their victims' favorite breakfast. A weak smile crossed the woman's face. I suppose not. But that doesn't mean I forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand. After breakfast, Milani explored the house with new eyes. Evidence of the conspiracy was everywhere once she knew to look. The bathroom cabinet held razors that were wrong for masculine use. The laundry room contained detergents designed for delicate fabrics. Even the groceries skewed feminine, salads and yogurts replacing hearty meals. In what had been Derek's home office, she found the most damning evidence. File folders labeled with dates, containing printed research about hormone therapy, bookmarks on the computer for transgender resources, support groups, clothing stores that specialized in larger sizes, a transformation planned down to the smallest detail. Find what you're looking for? Milani spun in the desk chair. The woman leaned against the doorframe, hands shoved in her pockets. You really did your homework. I wanted it to be perfect, safe and gradual and reversible if... She trailed off. If what? If I found out? If I hated it? If you weren't who I thought you were inside. Milani turned back to the computer, scrolling through the bookmarks. Support groups, therapists, voice training coaches, resources she might have found herself, given time and awareness. You took that journey away from me? Her voice was quiet but firm. The discovery, the questioning, the choice to begin. You stole my transition story and replaced it with your own. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't give it back. No, it doesn't. Milani closed the browser, standing from the desk. The burgundy sweater moved naturally with her body, unlike the stiff men's shirts that had always required adjustment. I need to go out. Where? I don't know, somewhere I need to think without you hovering. Take my car, the keys are by the door. What if I don't come back? The woman's face went pale, but she nodded. Then I'll deal with that when it happens. Milani found herself appreciating the response. No pleading, no manipulation, just acceptance of a possible outcome. She grabbed the keys and her wallet, still containing Derek's driver's license with a photo that looked increasingly foreign. The car started smoothly. Milani adjusted the seat and mirrors, noting how her smaller frame required different positioning. She pulled out of the driveway with no destination in mind, just a need for movement and space. The city looked different from this new perspective. Shop windows reflected a woman in burgundy and denim, auburn hair catching the light. At a red light, Milani found herself staring at a boutique display, dresses arranged to catch the eye. Before, she would have hurried past. Now she wondered about sizes, styles, what colors might complement her pale skin. She parked downtown, feeding the meter with quarters from the console. The sidewalks were busy with lunch hour crowds. Milani walked among them, invisible in her ordinariness. Just another woman running errands, nothing remarkable about her presence. A coffee shop beckoned. Inside, the barista smiled and asked for her order without a second glance. The name issue arose again. Derek felt wrong on her lips. But Milani wasn't official, wasn't documented anywhere. Medium latte, please. Name for the order? A pause, then Milani. Pretty name. That'll be ready in just a minute. Milani found a corner table, watching the flow of customers while she waited. Business people grabbed quick coffees, students hunched over laptops, friends chatted over pastries. Normal life continuing around her while her own had shattered and reformed. Milani, medium latte? Hearing the name called aloud in a public space made it real in a way private acknowledgement hadn't. Milani retrieved her drink, thanking the barista who smiled and moved on to the next customer. No questioning looks, no confusion. And with that, Milani closed the journal, her story complete. She finally felt ready to share her extraordinary journey with the world, knowing that her true identity was hidden no more. The transformation was complete, and she embraced the life she had unknowingly assumed. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.